Shalom. First off, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakadash, Yahweh being the true name for the Heavenly Father, Yahushai being the name for his only begotten Son, who the world eagerly calls God, and Jesus Christ. I want to give double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, the time of this truth and rule well, and salutations to you, hopeful elect, pushing this truth, and all honesty and sincerity. This is Brother Yahweh coming to you, let's the spirit power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, and this lesson is going to be going into heritage and who are the true Hebrew Israelites today. It's important that we still stick to the milk of the scriptures, the basics, to teach the foundations of what the things that have woken people up to this truth. And this is also going to be a reminder of how do you know that the Bible is true. How do you know that this book that you're reading is true? Isn't it a white man's book? Didn't a man write it? How could something written by man consider to be true? These are questions that people ask themselves in reference to when they come in contact with the Bible. A lot of them, a lot of them come up with different excuses. A lot of them say things like that because they're looking for anything and any excuse but to return to the Lord, because they know it's gonna take a form of responsibility and action to start to keep Lord's commandments and to live your life the right way. They know that it requires some type of strict protocol, and for them to change their lifestyles that they have grown accustomed to with pleasure and wickedness, they'd rather not, take that step. They'd rather continue doing what they want to do, versus, hearing about the Lord. Well, first and foremost, we're going to say this. The scriptures is not a so-called white man's book. The so-called white man did take it. He did try to taint it. But his actions, proved to be futile in that aspect. And for one thing, the white man wouldn't write a book that actually talks about his own demise, that actually says that he's going into slavery. Why would he write a book saying that, his future downfall? Why would he type something about that? So you have to ask yourselves those questions. And it wasn't necessarily him adding to the book. They did so more so here in the 20th century. They try to do so, coming up with gay version Bibles and stuff like that. But in history, during the times of transatlantic slave trade, they actually did more of removing things versus adding. And scriptures that they removed were things that the slaves would possibly read to cause a rebellion. And we look at the historical, actions of this, such as the movement by Nat Turner. Did you know his movement was inspired by the Bible? A lot of people do not know that. He actually read his history within the scriptures, and he read the judgment of the Edomites. Now, he did so in wickedness because he took actions into his own hands, which ultimately, led to his downfall. He didn't wait upon the Lord, but nonetheless, he did find out the truth. Okay, so let's go into the truth of what he found out. All right. We can start off here. What the scriptures say of how you're supposed to read the Bible and the importance of it. This is 2nd Esdras 15:1. It says, "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord." Okay. All right. So people teaching you, they're supposed to be speaking something to you about prophecy. If you're being taught the Bible, you're supposed to be learning about prophecy. Prophecy is what proves the scriptures to be true. This is one of the most, if not the most important part about reading and teaching the Bible is speaking prophecy. Speaking prophecy and teaching about faith, teaching about heritage. This book is a historical heritage book. Okay? And it's completely prophetic. Okay? And we're going to read what prophecy or prophesy means. Okay? So to prophesy is a verb from prophecy. Okay? Related to prophesied, prophesying. All right? So let's go on further here. It says it comes from prophecy. You click that. Okay? Function of a prophet. All right? So it comes from the word prophet. Prophecy comes from a prophet. All right, it says a gift of interpreting the will of the gods, from prophetess, prophet, meaning things spoken or written by a prophet. Now, what is a prophet? Okay, a person who speaks for God, one who foretells. Okay, you're basically speaking about the future, something to come. Inspired preacher. Okay, inspired preacher or teacher. Pro, before. Per, forward. Okay, and then BHA, to speak, tell, say. Okay, it's the means to speak of something about the future. These are the words of prophecy. Okay, this is Revelation 10:7. It says, "But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of Yahweh should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets." All right. Now it says, verse 8, "And the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again, and said, Go, take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth." And he said, and I went to the angel, he said, "Give him the little book." And he said, "Unto me take it and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey." Okay, the book is referencing these scriptures, this truth. Okay, and he says, I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey. And as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter," meaning beginning to get understanding. It's good words, sweet, but you understand the bitter and the sweet parts of the scriptures. And verse 11 says, "And he said unto me, Thou must prophesy again before many peoples and nations and tongues and kings." So we must speak prophecy of things that happen or currently happen and things to come. Okay? Revelation 1:3, "Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand." All right, so it's important to read about prophecy. It's about prophecy. Prophecy is the foundation to where you find out if something is fake or true. Now, out of all the scriptures and things that are out there written, all the books, ancient books, you got the Quran and all types of other stuff. The King James Version Bible, 1611, is the one book that teaches prophecy, things that have happened, things to come, and things that have been happened in ancient time, written of, that actually did take place. This is the one book that you find things like that, which we're going to get an example of. 2 Timothy 3:16. Okay, so obviously there are people set up to teach. All right, we just read with all the scriptures, the Lord actually picked prophets. Okay, this scripture in 2 Timothy 3:16 says, "All scripture is given by inspiration of God, and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness." Okay, all scripture is given by inspiration. So the Lord actually selects men to teach, prophets to write down, and the Lord inspires them on what to write and what to say. He picked men to do that. So yes, the scriptures is written by men, but it's inspired by the Lord. So how do you know that that man is actually inspired by the Lord or not? By filtering what the scripture said to do. Hear the words of prophecy. So he must be speaking prophecy. Okay? Now, let's go into some prophecy here. Deuteronomy chapter 28. Okay? Deuteronomy 28 verse 15. "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the words of Yahweh thy God, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." You're just reading about a prophecy. Okay, so at the time that this prophecy was written down, all right, which was inspired by Yahweh, given to Moses to write it down, And he wrote down and said that, hey, if we don't keep these commandments, this is a prophecy of what will happen to us. Now, all this from verse 15 down to 68 goes into all the things that would happen to Israelites if they did not keep the commandments. This is a prophecy of destruction. Okay? Now we're going to go down here to the very last one, and we'll jump through. Actually, before we go to the last one, we're going to read verse 45. It says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahweh thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Okay? So the curses, not only will they happen for not keeping the commandments, but when they do happen, they're for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, which means they are generational. You're generational, okay? Specifically to the Hebrew Israelites. Now let's get this simple, easiest, obvious curse to understand within this book of Deuteronomy 28th chapter. All right, so this is Deuteronomy 28 and 68. It says, and Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Now that word buy you is translated into free you. All right, so this is talking about slavery. Slavery. Now, when this chapter was written down, the Hebrew Israelites were already delivered out of Egypt, and they left by foot. They did not go with ships. And the first time they went into Egypt by foot. They did not go into Egypt by ships. You do not need ships to enter into Egypt from Israel. It's all land, okay? So now it says that they will go into Egypt again with ships. Now, basic history has shown that the Israelites never went into Egypt again with ships. Basic biblical history tells you they left out of Egypt, and they left out by foot specifically, and gave you the whole story where the Lord showed a miracle by splitting the sea for them to cross safely to escape from the Egyptians. Okay, so they left specifically by foot, and they never returned again by ships. So what is that talking about? Well, let's get that example here. All right. What nationality or group of people went into another land, went into slavery, and was not set free by ships? Here's a boat from the transatlantic slave trade. See them packed in there like sardines? Okay? It just didn't stop there. It also happened to the so-called Latinos and Native Americans. You see them in chains? Another photo of a slave ship. Okay? You have the slave routes by ships. Okay? This is the slave trade. Now, Egypt. How do we know this is talking about America? Look at the symbolisms. Okay, the symbolism. Ecclesiastes 1 verse 9. The thing that hath been, it is which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. There you have it. America is the Egypt. Egypt goes into Mizraim, which means bondage, a place of slavery. America thrives off of slavery, off of working people to death. It always has and always will thrive off that if it's allowed to continue. Okay? And his name, the Most High's name is Yahweh. But you can see here how this is Egypt. Why is that bound on the back of the dollar bill, that pyramid? Here we go, right here again. I will send thee back into Egypt by ships. Place of bondage by ships. Now, the so-called Native Americans and Latinos also fall into that category. They came over here by slave ships by the way of the Assyrians. We can find their voyage in the book of Second Esdras. Okay, it talks about that. But you can see the history. These are all the times that we went into slavery for not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. So we first had the Egyptian captivity, and after we got out of Egypt, they said, hey, you're going to go into slavery again if you don't keep the commandments. And the first people to not keep the commandments of the Israelites was the Northern Kingdom. Okay? Under the Northern Kingdom, since they didn't keep the commandments first, they went into this Assyrian captivity, and they were carried by ships over here to the North and South America. That's how the so-called Latinos and Native Americans got over here to this land. Then you had even more captivities over and over and over again for not listening. The Southern Kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, they came over here during the slave ships during, the 1600s. But prior to that, the first was the Northern Kingdom. They came over here way, way before that, around 720 BC, by slave ships. And they dwelt that whole time. And guess what? They caught the slavery again during the conquistadors, the Spanish acquisition. Guess what? The Spaniards enslaved the natives. Okay? Let's go back into this history here. All right, so this is an article from Slate.com. America's Other Original Sin. Europeans didn't just displace the Native Americans, they enslaved them and encouraged tribes to participate in the slave trade on a scale historians are only beginning to fathom. They actually lost a lot of these documents. A lot of them got rid of the documentation from how many natives was enslaved on purpose. Okay? But this article goes into it. It says Alan Galloway writes that between 1670 and 1715, more Indians were exported into slavery through Charlestown, now Charlestown, South Carolina, than Africans were imported. So it says more went into slaves than the Africans that were being brought in. This means there was a massive scale of natives that were being slave traded. Now, this was just a documented, between 1670 and 1715. There's very little to no documents of what happened before that, of how many. It says that Brett Rushforth recently attempted a tally of the total numbers of enslaved, and he told me that he thinks 2 million to 4 million indigenous people in the Americas, North and South, may have been enslaved over the centuries that the practice prevailed. A much larger number that had previously been thought is not on the level of the African slave trade, which brought 10 million to the Americas, but the earliest history of European colonies in the Americas is marked by native bondage. Okay, meaning the first ones that landed in the 1500s is marked by bondage. Okay, slavery. Sold for bondmen and bondwomen. Bondage. Okay. If you go up to about 1680 or 1690, there still, by that period, have been more enslaved Indians than enslaved Africans in the Americas. So, yes, so-called natives and Latinos, okay, you indigenous Latinos, you fit the curses. Okay? We can go into more of the numbers of what was documented by Columbus and his henchmen. Okay? All right, so this says the 1492 Voyage of Discovery. There's hardly all that is at issue. It says that in 1493, Columbus returned with an invasion force of 17 ships. All right, so he came. And it says that Columbus' programs reduced Taino numbers from as many as 8 million at the outset of his regime to about 3 million in 1496. So from 8 million to 3 million. Then it says perhaps 100,000 were left at the time of the governor's departure. So from 8 million to 100,000. What happened to all those people? They were slaughtered, genocide, and enslaved. That's exactly what happened. Okay? That includes Columbus, the conquistadors, all of that, okay? It says 100,000 were left by the time of the governor's departures. His policies, however, remained, with the result that by 1514, the Spanish census of the island showed barely 22,000 Indians remain in line. So remember, they're saying it started at 8 million. Now it's 22,000. And then it says in 1542, only 200 were recorded. So from 8 million to 200, that's how many people were slaughtered, killed, and enslaved. And they forced them to mine gold and try to search for gold. They raped, robbed, and pillaged, and they took them back to Spain. Okay? Bondage. So this is slavery. So we're reading about the history of the slave trade. Now we can get into some more in the Bible, because this says that this would happen to the Hebrew Israelites. Now, today, the people called Slovakia Jews today, or the Jewish people, they're currently residing in the land of Israel, and they're not indigenous at all. They're not Negro at all. So who are all those people? They're the ones calling themselves Jews, right? Revelation 2:9, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Okay? So the scriptures refers to people that are calling themselves Jews and are not as a synagogue of Satan. Synagogue of Satan, the church of Satan. Basically Satan's henchmen. Yes, there are people as referred to as actual devils. And the word devil just means deceiver. So the ones that are calling themselves Jews, they don't fit any of these curses. They are the synagogue of Satan. They are not the real Jews. So who are the real Jews? Who are the real Jews? Isaiah 42:22, but this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all ensnared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none saith restore. Tell me how those so-called Jewish people fit this prophecy. They're not robbed and spoiled. They're not snared in holes and jails, locked up, hid in prison houses. They're not preyed on. They're not for a spoil. They're rich. Their commerce, their money basically is running this current society that we live in. Okay, so if you haven't understood it by now, the real Israelites are the so-called Black, Latino, and Native American people. And here are the 12 tribes, according to biblical prophecy, which you can also find in Genesis chapter 49. Judah, tribe of Judah, is the so-called Negroes. Benjamin, West Indians. Levi, the Haitians. That is the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom of Israelites. Simeon, the Dominicans. Zebulon, Guatemalans, the Panamanians. Ephraim, Puerto Ricans. Manasseh, Cubans. Gad, North American Indians. Reuben, Seminole Indians. Naphtali, the Argentinian to the Chileans. Asher, Colombians to Uruguayans. And Issachar, the Mexicans. Those are the 12 tribes of Israel. Those are the Hebrew Israelites today. Okay? Those are the Israelites today. The book of 2nd Esdras 13 and 40 gives you the voyage of the northern kingdom, the so-called Latinos and Native Americans today, and how they got to the Americas. Here's a map where you can find that. Now, this is just biblical prophecy. This is something that was spoken that would happen to these people thousands of years ago. It was written down, and it took place. That's one evidence. That's biblical evidence. But guess what? We got archaeological evidence too. Look, this is found in New Mexico. It's called the Los Lunas Stone. Do you know what's written on that? The 10 Commandments. In ancient Paleo Hebrew, and it's dated back to be thousands of years old. Here we go.
Yahweh, the name of the Lord. take up the name of the Lord. Yeshua. Yeshua for naught.
Now that's an Edomite translating it, proving you that that stone actually has the name of the Lord. And listen to what the natives called him. Okay, it means he is. And in native language, that translates to he who creates. Okay, and that also goes into the scriptures. And his name is Yahweh. And notice what they call him. Yeh, hey, hell, yah, hey, oh, yah, hey, wah. Okay, you heard it right there. That's all right. Now look even further. More archaeological physical evidence. Numbers 15:38. Speak unto the children of Israel and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put on the fringe of the borders and the ribbon of blue. And look how the customs of the so-called Native American Indians. This was also the custom of certain tribes that was carried away as slaves from the Africans over here to the Americas. Those were Israelites. And you can find the same custom of blue borders and fringes amongst all those indigenous people of the North and South America and certain tribes in Africa of still carrying that on. All this archaeological evidence here. The key stones. Newark, Ohio, discovered 1860. The oldest known commandments. Iroquois Indians. You see this? The Decalogue stone. Los Lunas stone. We just wrote about that or read about that. The Bat Creek stone. All these stones containing Hebrew found over here in America. That's your proof right there, okay? You got the name of the Lord found right here. It says, which means Yahweh. That's his real ancient name. That's his true name, his only name, Yahweh. And his son is Yahweh Shai. You got the symbolism here of America being Egypt. Okay, so there's no getting around this, man. Look at this article here that I found. As members of the Four Winds Native American Ministry, we believe in the one true God, Yehovah, our Creator, which his name is Yahweh. So why is it that they call him Yehovah? Why does it sound so similar? This is a prophecy found in Deuteronomy chapter 49, verse 19. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. That's the prophecy of the North American Indians being overcome by the Cavaliers, the cavalry, the conquistadors. At the last, Gad will overcome. That's why you had a 500-year war. That's history. Okay? So these are all facts, man. These are things of our people committing sins, doing, as they do in Egypt, following false gods and idols. These are the things that cause us to go into captivity, slavery. All right? Then as you see on here, look at the yoke of iron upon that man's neck. Well, that's in the Bible too. We can grab that. Okay? Deuteronomy 68, verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Yahweh shall send against thee. Did they not come over here to this land? Did they not come over there to Africa and take you out of there? And then put you in America? Did they not come to America and do this? Send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. He shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Let's go back to the picture here. Hunger, thirst, nakedness, yoke of iron placed upon the neck. You see? Hunger, thirst, nakedness, yoke of iron upon thy neck. This is the truth. All right? So this is just a quick, hit lesson. Just a reminder of of who you are. Know who you are to understand that this book is true. You're not going to find this in no Quran, man. You're not. They only got the Quran from the Bible, and then they flipped it and twisted it up to suit their needs. The Bible was written way before that. Even in the Quran, you'll find reference to who the Israelites are as being God's people. So, remember who you are, know your history. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I'm going to go ahead and close out, give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth and rule well. And salutations to you, hopeful elect, pushing this truth in all honesty and sincerity. Shalom.